Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Uncommon Educator. I'm so excited about the name I finally secured for this little show that I bring to you each week. These bite-sized nuggets of information that help you be uncommon. Now, to me, uncommon means you're not like the average educator. You do hard better. You know, I think back to being in college and dreaming of securing my first teaching job. And way back then, it was a completely different time. The mid 90s, there were less positions than there were people trying to become teachers. So you really had to be the best. You had to know people, you had to network, you had to really show that you could step in and not look like a brand new teacher as a brand new teacher. I didn't secure my very first position in Iowa. I was offered a position as a paraprofessional, and that was the norm coming out of college in 1995. I was told by the principal where I did my student teaching, who I loved, by the way, who actually got me my first position here in Houston. But up in my small town, there just were not positions. And he said, come in, be a para, let's get you acclimated to this work. And when a position opens in the next 2 to 3, 4 years, you'll get that position. Now, in 1995, teaching positions were already at a very low pay, but the economy was completely different at that time as well. But teachers in Iowa were starting at $19,000. And a paraprofessional was going to start at 12,000. And the work I was doing through college, I was making more than that. I was making 15,000. And so I just couldn't justify doing that, taking that pay cut, even though it was the profession I had always wanted to join. I came to Houston because that principal then saw my concern and he got me a job or helped me get the job in Houston, Galena Park ISD, which is one of the high or had been one of the highest performing large districts in the Houston area, still is very, very, very regarded. And I was signed a contract to teach for $24,000, and I was on top of the world. It was a dream come true. And I had that mentality, that mindset that I better go in and do the very best every single day to keep my job and to be a person who was highly regarded. Now, 2025, 30 years later, things are completely different. I will get on my soapbox for a minute, all of you out there listening, and I think this is important to hear. I do think because of the fact that we have more positions than people qualified to teach. Sometimes we bring in what I like to say is just a warm body. I've spoken my TED Talk about how we don't need teachers who just chose this profession as a backup plan, that they're thinking, oh, try it, see, can't be that hard. Let me see what happens here, right? Or people who just think, you know what, I need a paycheck, so let me just have something. I can go in at 7, I could come home at 3, and I can be done, right? It's not like that. And when they realize it's not like that, then it's hard and it's too hard. And then they quit or they do the bare minimum. And I'm going to step off my soapbox now as we talk about this week's topic, but I do think that that context is exactly where I'm going with this, because here's a conversation I had this week. Somebody said to me, do you know what one of my pet peeves is? And I said, I don't. This is somebody I don't know very well. And she said, you know, we're preparing for our school's end of, not mine, but this person's school, end of the year celebrations. And as a school leader, I feel like I should be up there announcing all the names, but the teachers like to announce the names. And she said, how did you do it? And I shared with her that when I did our end of the year celebrations, I announced names, and I did it for a very specific reason. And that was because I knew all of my students. I knew how to say their names first and last. And I wanted to see their face when I handed them all of the awards that they had earned that year, right? But I was a kid growing up with a very unique name, Sherry. Yeah, it sounds simple, but my parents didn't spell it simply. They spelled it Cheri because they were big fans of Cher in the 70s when I was born, right? However, by the 80s, and I don't know why, because who doesn't know Cher? I think even all of you all right now that are just coming of age know who Cher is. However, I was called Cherry very often. And worse yet, my family's from Norway. And our last name is very unique. My maiden name is Jelly, and it's spelled Hjelle. Nobody could get that right. Nobody. So either they didn't say my last name, or they pronounced it so many different ways. I was the oldest of the grandchildren in my generation. However, my parents went to the same school. My aunt and uncle, my grandparents graduated from the same high school. It's not like we were unknown. As a matter of fact, I say often, my grandpa was like the unofficial mayor of our town, right? People knew, but people didn't pronounce it correctly. And I think back to how embarrassed I felt when people made the mistake of saying it wrong. And kids are cruel. Everyone would laugh. And then they would make fun of me. As a matter of fact, I had a basketball coach in high school that said to me, I can't pronounce your last name, so we're just going to call you Sherry Jello. How embarrassing is that? And every kid started calling me Sherry Jello. As a matter of fact, when I got my track warm-ups after basketball season was done, on the back of my warm-up, it had the word Jello. I still have that because that became who I was. Who wants to be called that? Nobody. And this memory flooded my mind immediately when this person said, my teachers want to do it, but even the classroom teacher at the end of the school year either doesn't know how to spell or pronounce all of the students' names. And she said, and I have a problem with that. Am I wrong for having a problem with that? As you can guess, my response was, well, because of personal reasons, you should have a problem with that. But ironically, when we have things on our mind, things show up, right? You think about a red car and you see like a bazillion red cars. Later that day, I saw on a social media post in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in, and they spoke about the importance of calling children by their name correctly. So we're winding down our year. Hopefully, you know all of your students. Sure, middle schools and high schools, or schools that maybe are more departmentalized rather than just having one or two teachers, one or two classes, might be a little more challenging. But if you don't know their names and you don't call them by their names, it's time. It's time to step up. It's time to get that right. And as you are going into your next school year, make that a priority. Because when you're called the correct name, it means something. If you don't believe me, wait until the next time somebody calls you a different name than what you have. I promise it hurts everywhere it's supposed to. All right, y'all, have a great, amazing week ahead. It's almost done. I know some of you still go through June, but it's still winding down and it's coming fast. So go out there, do the thing, make a difference for kids. And don't forget, when you're uncommon, you do hard better.